Hello, everyone. Today's episode, I decided to talk about the thing that's been trending on all the news platforms, all the social media platforms. Everywhere you look, people are talking about it. You run into people, they know exactly what you're talking about. What I'm talking about today is the night of the Oscars where Will Smith smacks Chris Rock, and I'm just gonna I have a few thoughts on it, and I thought I'd share them. So, a little bit of background if you hadn't heard about it. So, it seemed like, Chris Rock he's a comedian, and he was cracking jokes at the Oscars. The Oscars is something that I never watch, really. I don't really care that much about it, but I happened to find out because it blew up. So, Chris Rock was making jokes. Apparently, they typically have a comedian up there making fun of some of the actors and some of the people out of love. Typically, comedians or people I know who are jokesters or who poke fun at people typically do it out of love. It's almost like it's their form of endearment. And it kind of shows that, they can be comfortable with them. But, so, Chris Rock he made a joke about Will Smith's wife, Jada Smith, and he said something like, G.I. Jane 2, can't wait to see it, after he said, Jada, I love you. And I'd seen G.I. Jane. It's like this movie where this woman, Demi Moore, has a shaved head, and Jada Smith has a shaved head too, and apparently she's suffering from I forget what it's even called, but some sort of illness where she has hair loss, and apparently that's been a pretty terrible thing for her self-esteem and whatnot. And I can imagine I'd be tormented if I was losing my hair. So I fully understand, and I have sympathy for that all the way. So then Chris Rock made the joke. At first it seemed like everyone was laughing. Will Smith even was laughing a little bit. But Jada did not seem very pleased. And yeah, it was a joke that could be taken, people can take offense to that kind of joke, I'm sure. But, Jada she seemed somewhat annoyed, more than somewhat annoyed. And it doesn't show it, but it looks like Jada and Will probably made eye contact, and Will's tune changed from laughing to angry, and all of a sudden it showed Chris Rock saying, "Oh, Will, hello," and then Will Smith walks up to him and just gives him a good old smack across the face, and and Chris Rock was like, "Wow. Wow!" And it took everyone by surprise, and then Will Smith was like, "Keep my wife's name out your fucking mouth," and he said that twice, and Chris Rock was like, it was a G.I. Jane joke, dude," and it just took everyone by surprise. But nothing even really happened. Nothing happened. It was just silence. So then it was like Chris Rock just continued his talk that he had planned, and it's just hilarious. But I came to talk about my thoughts on the whole matter because it seems like a lot of people have differing opinions, and I just thought I would share mine, because I think I can see both sides of the story, but my conclusion is you'll find out. So, first side of the story. Like I was saying before, losing your hair is I can't even imagine, but I bet that it's detrimental in some ways to your identity of who you even are, your self-esteem, your confidence in yourself, all of those things. And so if someone was poking fun of someone about it in a way where they were like, oh, I genuinely want something bad to happen to you, or I genuinely don't like you, so I'm just going to keep poking fun at you. And if it was that type of environment, then yeah, I would definitely think that would be uncalled for. But I think comedians, they're in an interesting position because they go up there and their job is to talk about things that typically aren't talked about, make fun of things that normally people don't make fun of, any different kind of topic. And that's kind of what comedy is about. People are used to living their regular lives, we're not going to dive into that, it's a touchy subject, but then comedians go up there and kind of break those social rules and get people to laugh because of it. And it's honestly a beautiful thing, and it gets people to enjoy life and appreciate laughter. And so, in my opinion, what could have been a little bit more reasonable is if Jada and Will weren't, especially Jada, if she wasn't the hugest fan of the joke, take the joke, but then maybe talk to him about it, maybe talk to others about why you weren't the hugest fan of it, and I'm sure Chris would have understood and would have apologized, or would have at least just had a discussion about it. But so, well, I'm a person who, I don't resort to violence whatsoever. I like to settle things with words, and I typically see myself sometimes as a pacifist. Not always, but I'm like, we live in a somewhat very free society. If I was living in a different time frame where violence was almost way more necessary, then yeah, I'd probably be more violent. But from a young age, my mom would always say to me, well, I just remember this specific lesson she taught me. My brother and I were kind of getting in a little bit of a tussle. I think some violence occurred, maybe a hit or a slap or a shove or something. And my mom saw, and then she sat us down. I was probably only 7, 8. And she was like, do you know what could happen if, when you're older, you resort to violence and you punch someone or even hit someone or even just touch someone? You could be sent to jail. And I remember she had me and my brother watch Shawshank Redemption, which is a movie about a guy who got convicted of doing something he didn't do, but he put himself in a situation which, well, I think her main lesson was, look at how terrible prison is. You don't want to go there. Don't hit other people. Use your words. Use your words. And so that's pretty much always been ingrained in my brain. And there's this interesting thing about reverse psychology where it's like, oh, if someone says something mean or negative to you, flip it on its head and say, well, I really appreciate that you were honest with me. Thank you for talking to me. Or, I just see, and I really appreciate you too. Or you just kind of, it's a beautiful thing, because then their anger just turns to, oh, and it just completely de-escalates. And it's like, just be the bigger person, flip it on its head. And I don't know, what would Jesus do is typically what's going through my brain. It's like, would Jesus just smack that? Would Jesus say something rude and condescending back and egg him on? And it's like, that's just not useful. No, let's de-escalate and then let's discuss. And so that's typically my response to these kinds of things. And then when I see Chris Rock smack him, I'm like, I wonder what kind of consequences are going to happen because of that, because millions of people are going to see that, at least. And if anyone, if someone got smacked in a public setting and there were witnesses, the person could definitely be charged with assault and battery and all of those things. And I feel like Will almost felt like he had more authority and more power than a regular person, so he had the right to just smack Chris. Even though he's super famous and wealthy and popular, it's like he in his head was like, oh, there's no consequences because I'm a special case, because I'm an elite in some sense. And I don't think that was the mature way to go about it, and my respect for him decreased because there's so many other ways in which he could have stood up for his wife. People on social media or news articles I've been reading are saying like, yeah, great husbands are the husbands who stand up for their wives. Well done, Will Smith. And I'm like, sure, it's true that you want to stand up for your woman, but you don't need violence to do that. People who are classy and who have character are people who can stand up for people with their words, and it's like now it looks like Will is more of a child who acted on impulse and emotions, and he couldn't stand up to Chris Rock at all with words, and he had to resort to smacking him. And the funny thing was, it's like Chris Rock did that whole flipping, like I just said, flip to the positive. Oh, that was the greatest moment of television ever. And like, he didn't like get angry or try to fight back. It's like, it's not worth it. Just take it and turn the other cheek and continue on. And that's what I like. When I see people who can do that, I respect. So, and I wonder what kind of precedent this is going to tell people, especially when it seems like it's pretty split down the middle. Some people are defending Will Smith and saying Chris Rock was saying such a insensitive joke and of course he should have been punished. And then other people are saying Will Smith acted so irrationally and it's inexcusable and it's a disgrace. And I'm more on the second side where it's like, come on, Will, use your words. You're a professional rapper. Use your words. Spit some shit back. Don't smack him. It's just not. It shows that you don't have much of a defense. It shows that you've already been defeated. So then I'm like, what kind of lesson is this teaching people? Oh, if someone says something rude and mean, oh, you now have the right to smack that person because they said something that offended you or offended your woman or offended your friend. And I'm like, that's a sign that society is the stability of society, where it's like, yeah, thou shalt not hurt the other people. Every single human life has value and should be treated with respect. And it's like, that gets eroded when people are saying, oh yeah, well done, Will. Yeah, it's great that you retaliated with violence. And oh, he's such a strong person who can stand up for his wife. And I'm like, what are these people are now, what's going to happen when someone says something rude to someone? There's going to be so much more violence, in my opinion. Especially, there's a lot of young people that watch the Oscars or are now hearing about this. And what's that going to say to someone when a high school or a middle school or even an elementary school person who they hear someone say something that was rude and then they're like, oh, I love Chris Rock in all of these, or no, I love Will Smith in all of these movies, and he smacked Chris Rock and it was fine, and oh yeah, it looked like Chris Rock deserved it because he said something kind of rude. And it's like, oh, I'm just going to smack this other kid. And it's like, that's gonna get you detention, suspended, expelled, juvenile detention, prison if the person is 18 in high school. It's like, what kind of lesson is Hollywood trying to promote right now? It seems like there's got to be some kind of consequence for this. Otherwise, it's going to be normalized. Like, hey, if you're offended, use your violence. Use violence. It's okay. And I just don't think that's right at all. And I honestly am dumbfounded on why people are so divided about this. And I heard someone say where it's like, if that joke was so insensitive and so uncalled for, then comedy is dead. And I'm with that. It's like, words are words. They can hurt, but you know what's interesting about words? They can be defeated by words that are more truthful, more complex, and just better speech. It's like, that's the thing about free speech. Speech gets updated. So it's like, oh, if someone says something rude to you, flip it on its head. Use your words back. You don't need to resort to violence. I keep repeating all of this, but I hope that people don't start using violence because they have no defense other than that, or because they were offended, or I have hope that people are going to remember that that was a pretty disgusting moment for Will Smith to smack, and I hope that other people were talking and saying, you know, if Jada and Will wouldn't have reacted that way, no one would have ever remembered that joke at all. It would have just been one of the 50 jokes that were told that night that people kind of laughed at for a half a second and moved on, and no one would have even ever noticed it. Most people like me who don't even watch the Oscars don't give a crap, honestly. It would have moved on. You know how even like news that's pretty important and crazy, and people forget within a few weeks or months, and so it's like something that small would easily have been forgotten, and I would have had way more respect for Will and Jada if they would have just taken it. And that's the thing about comedy. In my life, I realize the different kinds of people there are out there. Some people, I can tell, can take a little bit of razzing, a little bit of joking, a little bit of, I can be a little bit harsh / critical / what's the right word? Negative towards them in a joking way and in a loving way, honestly, because, and then they can kind of dish some back, and it's all out of love, and typically it's at work or at school where it's like, man, this comedy and this joking back and forth truly makes the day better. And it's like, that's the kind of people I respect. The people who can take a little bit of prodding and who can stand up for themselves with their words. And it seems like Will Smith and Jada do not have that capability. And so I guess this is the end of the video where I say, well, if someone says something to you that seems rude or offensive, take a step back, take a deep breath, and ask yourself, did what they just say really matter that much? Thanks for sticking around to the end of this episode. If you found this discussion meaningful or engaging, feel free to give me a rating on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, comment on YouTube. Share this with your friends. If you found it meaningful, I'm sure they would too. Thank you so much, guys. Have a great rest of your day.